Hi, seventh graders. Today we're going to be talking about transformations. So this will be a new topic for us. And so transformations, we'll specifically be looking at transformations on the coordinate plane. And so when we transform something, what we're doing is we're changing it. And so in this case, to transform a shape or a figure means to change it. So we can change the size, the location, or direction that a figure is facing. So before we make a transformation, that figure is called a pre-image. Or the original figure, and then after the transformation, the new figure is called the image. And so if the pre-image were labeled A, then the image would be labeled A, and then you see this like apostrophe, and so we read that as A prime. So there's four main types of transformations that we're going to be focusing on, and this is just kind of a broad introduction to all of them, and then we'll dig in a little bit more specifically into each one. So first we have translations. And so what we're going to do, we're going to find the pre-image and then the image. So again, the image is going to be labeled as that prime with that apostrophe that we looked up here. So on this one here we have A is the pre-image, A prime is the image. And so this is a translation. So all the only thing that's changed about the figure is it was a slide. Okay, so a key word for a translation is going to be to slide. And one way that I remember that is the SL in slide and the SL in the word translation. If we look at this next one, here we have the pre-image is B. B prime is our image. And if we look at what happened here, this figure kind of flipped, or some of you might say mirror, and so this is called a reflection. And again, this FL in reflection and the FL in flip can help you remember that. Our next example, we have our pre-image of C, and C prime is our image. Now on this one, notice the size and the shape is the same, but it's it's facing a different direction. So this is a rotation. And a key word for rotation might be to turn it. And then on this last one, we have D is the pre-image, D prime is the image. And then notice here the size changed. Okay, so we might say enlarge. So we started with this figure and went to this one. Enlarge or shrink or reduce. Okay, so if your size of the shape is changing, we call that a dilation. So a couple of examples of transformations in the real world. These are just some examples. Okay, translations could be a conveyor belt. Okay, it's sliding items. Reflections could be an image of a landscape on a body of water. A rotation, a real life example would be a wheel, and the dilation could be like when you get your pupils dilated at the eye doctor. Again, these are just a couple of examples. All right, so when we have transformations, sometimes our figures remain congruent, and sometimes they don't. So congruence refers to whether the pre-image and image have the same size and shape. And then we're also going to look at orientation of the figure, which is going to refer to whether the pre-image and image are facing the same direction on the coordinate plane, and the orientation of the vertices refers to the order in which the vertices are labeled, like clockwise or counterclockwise. So we're going to look at these examples and we're going to identify the transformation, discuss if the figures are congruent, and if the orientation of the figure and the vertices changed or not. So here, this is the transformation. If we look, here's the image. Oh, sorry, here's the pre-image. And over here, we have the image of that triangle. So when we look at this has actually been flipped, and so that's going to be a reflection. Both triangles are still congruent, so they're the same shape and size, all right? But if we think of the orientation of the figure, all right, the direction that the figure is facing, that has changed, as well as the order of the vertices. So if we look at the pre-image, they're kind of labeled in a clockwise direction, and then now they're counterclockwise. So the orientation of the vertices has changed as well. On this one, when we look at our pre-image to the image, all right, notice this is more like a slide. So this is going to be a translation. SL for slide. Both figures are still congruent, so the same size and shape. And then the orientation of the figure is the same. Okay, so it's facing the same direction still, and the orientation of the vertices is also the same. On this transformation, the smaller one is we have two rectangles. The smaller rectangle is the pre-image, and then we have our primes. Okay, so rectangle, M prime, N prime, O prime, P prime. That's our image. And so this transformation, notice the size of our figure changed, and so this is called a dilation. And so these two rectangles are no longer congruent. They are the same shape, but they are no longer the same size. Now, if we look at the orientation, the figure is still facing the same direction, and then the vertices are also ordered in the same direction as well. And then on number 4, here, this shape has rotated. So this is the rotation. Both triangles are still congruent. The orientation of the figure has changed. All right, but the orientation of our vertices is actually the same here. So they're still labeled like in a clockwise manner. All right, so we're going to look at a couple of examples with Liv and Hassan. So Liv and Hassan graphed the transformations shown below. In 5 through 10, record which graph meets the given criteria by writing Liv, Hassan, both, or neither. So it represents a reflection. So we're going to look at which one represents a reflection. And here are the two triangles over on Hassan's. That would be a mirror reflection, so they're being reflected over that y-axis. Now, if we look at Liv, both sides have a rectangle, and some people might argue that the rectangle is reflected. But if we take a closer look at those vertices, for it to be a reflection, M prime would need to be over here where the P prime is, if it were actually properly mirrored. Here, the image is in quadrant 1. So the image, remember, is the new figure. And so quadrant 1, that's going to be Liv. So quick review of our quadrants. Quadrant 1 is the upper right-hand corner, and then they're actually labeled backwards, or sorry, counterclockwise. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Preserved congruence. So if we look here, both the pre-images and the image are congruent for both of those. The orientation of the figure, so the direction that the figure is facing, changed with Hassan. The orientation of the vertices changed just with Hassan. So the direction that the vertices are facing, and then changed to the size of the figure would be neither. So that's just a quick little introduction to some transformations. Have a great day.